Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Allison. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Now moving on to 401. Approval of the minutes from the February 21st meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Allison. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. 402, approval of the minutes from the February 21st executive session.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Allison. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. 501, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Second?
I have a motion by Charlotte, seconded by Allison. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. As part of our consent agenda, I just want to quickly thank First Things First for their donations. I also wanted to thank the Thai Foundation for their very generous $583,016 donation. Especially want to thank Kathy Stevens, who's in the audience tonight, the president. And I want to hand this off to Mr. McGee.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, we have two individuals that you approved on the personnel summary that I'd like to speak about. I'm going to start with, tonight, you approved Miss Andrea Wald to the position of Assistant Principal of Broadmoor Elementary, and I'll share a little bit about her background. Andrea earned a master's degree in language and literacy and a bachelor's degree in elementary education from Arizona State University. Andrea brings an extensive background in education, serving as an adjunct professor, assistant principal, and then most recently as TOSA for Broadmoor Elementary. Those who know Andrea have shared that she is a competent, dedicated, and effective education leader who is committed to student success. She demonstrates outstanding leadership skills in student management, curriculum and assessment, personnel training, and parent involvement. And she is thrilled to continue being part of the Tempe Elementary School District and ready to build lasting relationships with our students. Congratulations, Andrea.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Driscoll, Mike, thank you so much. That was very lovely. Thank you so much for this opportunity. This is my 24th year here in TD3, and I really look forward to continuing to lead and to work and help students throughout our district. So thank you so much.
All right, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Driscoll, I'd like to recognize another individual that you approved. Tonight, you approved Miss Amy Evans to the position of Interim Gifted Coordinator, and I'll share a little bit about her background. Amy earned a master's degree in curriculum and instruction from Arizona State University and a bachelor's degree in business and organizational communication from the University of Akron. She brings an extensive background in education, serving as grade level teacher, and most recently as a PACE teacher for our gifted program for the last 11 years. Those who know Amy have shared she has a deep respect and concern for the social, emotional, and educational growth of our students. Amy has always displayed a high degree of integrity and responsibility in her job. She is committed to being part of the Tempe Elementary School District and is excited to continue her work with our gifted students and families. We are confident that she will continue to be an asset to our district. Congratulations, Amy Evans.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Driscoll, and Mike, and to everyone else who's here, I just want to thank you for the opportunity and for prioritizing gifted education in TD3, something I'm very passionate about, and I'm excited for the work ahead.
Moving on to 601, Celebrate Excellence. Dr. Driscoll.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. I have a few items to celebrate. On Tuesday, March 5th, Toyota USA Foundation hosted a special event in which it was announced that Toyota's Driving Possibilities program would invest up to $9.3 million to support Tempe Elementary School District and Chandler Unified School District over a 5-year period. The funds received will be invested in STEM education and a resource hub for students and their families. Holdeman Elementary, Scales Technology Academy, and Mosley Middle School will be the school communities who will participate firsthand in this partnership. Thank you to our TD3 Governing Board, our TIE Foundation, our local community partners, Mosley Middle School students, and our school and district leaders for joining us for this momentous occasion. Toyota's Driving Possibilities program will introduce TD3 students to the boundless opportunities for a career in STEM, providing them access to inclusive and cutting-edge educational opportunities that are responsive to the demands of the future workforce, as well as improve access to critical support services for students and their families. This is truly a unique opportunity in which we are building STEM awareness and interest in our students while also helping to address the basic needs of our students and their families. We are excited and grateful for this opportunity. It is not every year that you see February 29th on the calendar. I actually had a friend that was born on February 29th, and I used to joke with her that she's the youngest person I know. In fact, it was only once every 4 years. Jessica Leister, a first grade teacher at Fuller Elementary, took advantage of this special calendar event by teaching her students about Leap Day and helped students make goals for the next 4 years. The students ended the day by dancing to the Leap Day frog song and decorating festive hats. March is National Social Work Month. Our TD3 family has an amazing and dedicated team of social workers. Each day, they go above and beyond in their work with students and families to ensure that they have resources and support they need. Please join us in thanking our social workers for all that they do. Aspire Academy at Arredondo students recently competed in the East Valley Regional Arizona National History Day competition this past weekend. Did we have any? Okay. From papers to documentaries, 41 4th and 5th grade students presented on topics of their choice that fit this year's theme, Turning Points in History. A special congratulations to 38 students who advanced to the Arizona History Day state competition in April. And that concludes my Celebrate Excellence for this week.
(7:01) Presentation on the proposed Frank and Getz preschool bell times.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Driscoll. In the spirit of continuous improvement and always doing what is best for our children, I'm here tonight to present proposed changes to the developmental preschool bell times for the 2024-25 school year. These changes would affect the developmental preschool classrooms at Getz and Frank Elementary in order to align with the current preschool bell times for the developmental preschool at Nevitt Elementary. The developmental preschool program provides special education services and instruction for our preschool students that have individualized education plans. There are important benefits of changing the bell schedule for our developmental preschools. Changing the times will create consistency across the developmental preschool classrooms, which would offer more time and possibilities for staff collaboration across the schools and across the program. It would also help our PM students at Getz, which currently are released at 4 p.m., get home in time for dinner. So this is these are the current bell times for Frank and Getz. And the proposed Frank and Getz developmental preschool bell times would align with the Nevitt Elementary current developmental preschool bell times.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I have lived those schedules, and yes, that is very hard when your little 3-year-old's getting home at 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Yes.
So I applaud it. The only question I have actually goes to Jesse, because I've always been told that the bell schedules were driven by bus issues, and that's why Getz was always last, is because of the unique needs for picking up and dropping off all those kids. So how is that all of a sudden a possibility?
That's a great question. We actually, since we changed the bell schedule last
I don't think your
year?
microphone's on.
Oh, the green button's on. Oh, I gotta get closer, like that. Since we changed the bell schedule last school year, we're able to accommodate this time. It fits in there just perfect.
Very jealous, very, very jealous. I think this is great for families, especially how little those kids are. They need to be home a lot earlier.
I second everything that Charlotte said, because I too lived through the schedule. Second question though, Jesse, for you is, sometimes Getz is the one that gets messed up during weeks like this where we have our parent-teacher conference. Does that still apply? Does this help that? We know it helps the families and the kids, because the kids are about to melt down by 4:10 when you pick them up, but how about
Yes.
for you guys?
This schedule actually will eliminate the issue with parent-teacher conference week, so it fits right into the schedule. So this is a win-win for us.
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. 8:01, open call to the public. We have no blue cards. And yes, everyone, you're free to leave. Moving on to 9:01, discussion, consideration, and possible approval of a copyright transfer and license agreement between Tempe Elementary District and Jeanette Arredondo. Dr. Driscoll?
So a while ago, we had the need for looking at our policies and regulation as they were related to creating school mascots. In this case, normally we wouldn't have to bring this to the board, but in this particular case, we went with the outside agency to create the actual logo. And when you do that, we need to make sure that the district actually has the rights to that logo. And so that's why this is being presented to you. If we would have used our in-house person for the logo, we wouldn't have had to bring it to you. But because of that, we wanted to make sure that if this was going to be a logo that Carminati was going to use, that it had board approval, and we had agreement that it became property of the district. And so the person in this case has been willing to say, yep, we give you all rights to that logo for use and everything, but we needed to go into a formal agreement, so we had it documented that that becomes a property of TD3.
Would it be possible in the relevant data just to reflect that a little bit of what you just said? Because I was thinking more curriculum, and then I read the contract, I was like, oh, it's about logos and things, but it might be helpful for the public to have that incorporated in. But other than that, looks like you would need a motion to approve the copyright transfer and license agreement between Tempe Elementary School District Number 3 and Jeanette Arredondo as recommended. I made a motion.
Second?
There we go. I have a motion by Monica and a second by Allison. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to 9:02, discussion, consideration, and possible approval of the Thrive to 5 family trainer position and corresponding job description. Dr. Driscoll.
All right, so many people might not know, but we have Thrive to 5. And it's actually funded by a grant, I want to say from First Things First. And so as salaries have increased, the grant funding has not increased. And so the proposals that we have in front of you is for us to restructure our staffing so that we can actually continue to provide those services. So these positions have been similar, but we've added more responsibilities to those positions because we are reducing by 1 staff.
I have no questions, but I'm willing to make a motion. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Thrive to 5 family trainer position and the corresponding job description.
Second?
I have a motion by Charlotte and seconded by Jim. All those in favor say aye. 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 Motion carries 5-0. Item 903, discussion, consideration, possible approval of the Thrive to 5 Family Resource Center manager position and corresponding job description. I assume this is a similar thing, Dr. Driscoll?
Yes, same thing, same position that we currently have, just added responsibilities.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Thrive to 5 Family Resource Center manager position and the corresponding job description.
Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Jim. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. 904, discussion and consideration and possible approval of the math coordinator position and the corresponding job description.
So I was shocked that we didn't have this as a job description, but really what we had was we have a science and math coordinator position, and we feel like it's beneficial for our district to have a person that is actually focused on science and also in math. To have one that is focused on both of those and have the expertise of both is pretty hard. So with this position, this person would be focused on K-8 math instruction throughout our whole district, and our current science and math coordinator would just focus on science, which I believe is her expertise as well. So we eliminated a couple positions in that area, so it wouldn't be an added position. It actually is a reduction to be more efficient in our delivery to schools with math instruction.
Monica.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Driscoll, is this position more support of student intervention support or teacher support with assessments and coordination?
A little bit of both. So really math instruction across the board. So from teachers' understanding of standards and curriculum to actual how that interacts teaching with our students. So a little bit of both of that, but really a person that actually knows the mathematics standards K-8 and can help our teachers be able to deliver that for our students.
Allison.
Thank you, Mr. President. In regards to the positions that had to be eliminated, what will happen to those teachers or those jobs?
Very good question. So like with anything in every system, we look at efficiencies. And so what we have is we have a whole bunch of open positions that all of our candidates could actually apply for. We actually have, they can apply for this position. So many of the people, it was like two positions, they could actually apply for this position, and so it'd only be one person impacted. But we have coaching positions and other positions open throughout our district that they would be highly qualified for to apply for, and if they get, they would have that job.
Are those in math?
Math, yes, math and instructional coaching, and then we have math teacher positions, I imagine, in our district as well open.
Okay, so there's positions for those who may be eliminated on this position that they would have access to that would be similar kind
or other positions that they're appropriately certified for.
Okay, and then this position does not have anyone in it yet,
No.
but there is somebody in the science position.
Yes,
But
so.
there is not somebody in this math position.
Yeah, this math position would be new. Right now, we have a science and math coordinator. So basically, we're saying science coordinator and then a math coordinator. So the person is in science and math coordinator, she would just be the science coordinator. Am I explaining that right, Katie?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Jim.
As I recall, we used to have a math coordinator and we used to have a science coordinator. Then we blended the two years ago. And then we haven't been able to keep one person in that job for more than 2 years. And they move on because they're highly qualified and trained and from that standpoint. So I'm in favor of this proposal, particularly because it's science and then it's also math, and they're broad areas where we know that our students aren't even up to the average in Arizona for our peer groups. So, Mr. President, I'd like a motion to approve this math coordinator position.
I'll second.
Before we get to the motion, Charlotte does have a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's just a technical question. If we are splitting apart the math and science, do we also need to have a science position change in job description approved?
We actually have a science coordinator position
Already on the books?
Yeah, we didn't have a math coordinator,
Got
which
it.
is why we had to bring this one.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I have a motion by Jim and a seconded by Monica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to 9:05, discussion consideration possible approval of the STEM developer position and the corresponding job description. Dr. Driscoll.
It's a night of me talking. So the STEM developer position is a part of that Toyota $9.3 million. As part of that, we have a focus on STEM, and one of the creation of position that is totally funded by the foundation is the STEM developer position. One of the things I would tell you would be K-8 focused. I know we had some questions on that, but it'd be a K-8 focus. I think we're going to start in the middle school and then work our way down, but it would be a K-8 focused STEM developer position.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm really pleased that we're going to go do this for STEM. It's really important. And many years ago during Sputnik is when I got interested in science. And we've changed. And now we realize that our students aren't prepared for the new job market or to learn those skills. So I think it's just great that we do STEM from that standpoint. And I serve on an advisory board to ASU for the bio-inspired, bioremediated geotechnics. And they're also working with education, specifically with geotechnics and biology, to all the way down to kindergarten. And in fact, one of the team leaders and I presented over at Conley a couple months ago, I believe, in November. And so I think it's great. So I'll be glad to do that at our 3 other schools whenever. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. A few of us were able to attend the announcement of this huge partnership with Toyota, and it was, just a great day of celebration. Super excited, or thankful for Michelle Grimaldi and Katie Moe for making the original pitch and the team for getting behind it to make sure it happened. I especially like that not only is Toyota providing the funds, but they're also saying this is a position that needs to happen. We're not expecting you to manage it all in-house. That's a really unique feature to this grant, and I think that it is very well thought out. And I would like to make a motion, if no other comments, to approve the STEM developer position and the corresponding job description.
Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Monica. All those in favor say aye. 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 Motion carries 5-0. Item 9:06, discussion, consideration, and possible approval of the proposed Getz preschool and Frank developmental preschool bell times.
This is based off the presentation we just had, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Getz preschool and Frank developmental preschool bell times as recommended.
As an alumni mom of Getz, I second.
We have enthusiastic motion by Charlotte and seconded by Allison. All those in favor say aye. 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 Motion carries 5-0. All right. Now begins the fun first reads of a bunch of policy reviews. So 9:07, discussion, first review of proposed changes to governing board policy BEDB agenda. Monica.
I had asked Heather where these policy updates came from, because traditionally, policy changes happen after signed by the legislature, so usually within 90 days. So we ensure that we're in compliance with whatever laws the legislature had passed for that session. Obviously, we're in the middle of session, so it's definitely not about any new bills, but it seems like these were some cleaned up bills or cleaned up policies that were made, I guess, through our policy services. But we'll definitely be taking a good review to make sure that they align with state statute and that they don't have any additional things that may cause more confusion. I guess that's what they're trying to alleviate, but just wanted to make that clear because I was confused as to why we're doing policy updates, so many of them, or first reads in the middle of session.
Dr. Driscoll.
Yes, so as part of our policy services that we get through ASBA, they give us these policy updates. And so periodically, normally at the beginning of the year or after a legislative session, we get all of these. This time, they gave us a whole bunch, but they were just what you were saying, cleanup of language from different laws to make sure their policies match to what the law says.
Allison.
I would like to thank whoever did the cheat sheet because that helps a lot after reading all of these. Are we going to go through each one individually, Mr. President, or are we going to group them since they're changes? Because if we group, I just have a couple questions on some of them.
Individually.
I was gonna say, if we could group them, that'd be cool, but I think we have to. If there's no other questions, I mean, it's just a first review, so we just kind of move on to the next one. 908, discussion and first review of proposed changes to governing board policy, BGE, communication feedback. Any questions on this one? Alrighty. 909, discussion first review of proposed changes to governing board policy, CFD, school-based management. Charlotte?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just wondering why on membership A, B, and D, why the policy advisement is to remove the number of required individuals in those three categories.
I can find that out. I think it was more just that to not be prescriptive to schools, but just saying that you just needed to have at least a parent, a teacher, a non-certified, a community member, and students if the school is a high school. But I'll check on that, and at the next one, I'll come back and give you that information.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually looked at the statute to find out, and it is actually now, the changes do reflect as written in state statute. Because I was confused by that too. Why is there a number there and why is it gone and other things?
So I didn't hear the first
So it does reflect the state statute. I did just look at that up right now, those particular changes.
Thank you.
Jim?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a comment, I'm definitely in favor of these changes. I think about 23, 24 years ago was how I started up at the former Shamley School that was Laird as a community member. And so I think it's great to have this in here. So thank you.
All right, no other questions? Moving on to 910, discussion first review of proposed changes to governing board policy EBAA, reporting of hazard/warning systems. Any discussion or questions on this? Seeing none, moving on to 911, discussion and first review of proposed changes to governing board policy EBC, emergencies. Seeing no questions, moving on to 912, discussion and first review of proposed changes to governing board policy ECB, building and grounds maintenance. Seeing no, oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. President. Years ago, I worked with a bunch of mothers down at the legislature to pesticides and pesticide application on school grounds and the notification procedures, because some our students are deathly ill if they get exposed to some of these pesticides or some of the carrier sort of things. So that's why we do the notice. And this may be just inside the building, but it says building and grounds. And so I think that's important to consider from that statutory standpoint. Thank you.
Any others? Moving on to 9:13, discussion and first review of proposed changes to governing board policy EEAA walkers and riders. Allison.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad that Jesse's here today because one of my questions was, do we have a lot of students that live within the walking distance of the district that we bus for any reasons? Or if we do, I guess they would mostly be special ed that need transportation at that time, right? So this hasn't been necessarily an issue for us. And then the next question is, it looks like it's been up from 20 miles, Dr. Driscoll, to 30 miles. We get paid for every time the tire turns on that, right? For an extra additional 10 miles?
I would have to defer to Eric, but I believe so.
Did we just get a raise? No. Okay.
I think it just extends how far we can go on other people's boundaries and get paid.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any others? Moving on to 9:14, discussion and first review proposed changes to governing board policy GBEF, staff use of digital communications and electronic devices. Allison.
Thank you, Mr. President. My only concern actually with this was that they crossed out the BlackBerry, and I do know people who currently still have BlackBerries, and the iPad and the iPod, and I don't feel like they're obsolete. And if we're going to be all-encompassing of reminding people, like, don't use your devices for school things, that maybe we should remind them of as many devices that are not usable? Is that up to us, or is this just something that we got to just say, okay, get over it?
Yeah, it's an advisory. You can choose to take the advice or not, but typically these are all made because of state statutes or something. So, but I'll follow up on this one and find out.
Charlotte.
Thank you, Mr. President. My only concern, besides the supposedly antiquated technologies that Ms. Years pointed out, is D, shall ensure that technologies used to communicate with students and district staff are maintained separate from personal technologies used to communicate with others. If that's, I just want to know if that's statute or if that's just the advisement. Monica might have already jumped in on that one.
I think it is statute, but I can get that information. I know that there was a lot of legislative work on this with teachers using personal cell phones to groom students, especially at the high school level, where you have coaches like, texting and stuff like that. So I almost want to say it was a statute, but I would have to check because I know that there was a huge thing about teachers using personal devices to communicate with students rather than having a district communication.
Okay, so this is where I get really nervous. So for example, to me, this also reads in the reverse, like if I use my work computer to check my personal email, does that fall under D? Or if I'm using my personal cell phone to text a message on Class Dojo, is that my personal device that then now is under question?
If you're using a personal device to communicate with students about school business, yes. And so what I believe they want is if you're communicating with students, that you're communicating in using district technologies, whether you have a district phone or a district vehicle, that's fine. But when you use your personal device to communicate students related to, that's the thing that I think coming in question where they want you to use a work. Because if you use a work, it actually can be tracked. We can track that and say, yes, this was a perfect conversation, but I can check on that, but I know that this was really in relation to, and a lot of times the high schools with coaches using their personal.
Yeah, and actually, I'll strike my first question because it's only with students, so it wouldn't be about checking my email.
Correct.
But it's the second question about Dojo, which is a platform that we all utilize.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And what I would say to you is what we would tell teachers is, be careful with using your personal. By all means, we give all our teachers laptops that they can use to do that, but when they do that, they run themselves at risk for having parents and other community members saying, why are you contacting?
But we also have parents who want pictures, and nobody wants
It's
to
a
haul their laptop around to take pictures.
Catch 22.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
Monica.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not quite sure either of these statutes matches this particular policy, because I don't see anything about it. One of them's about immunity and something else, and they're just, one of them's very long. 1341 is very long, 341, but I don't see anything.
I'll look it up. Like in my office, I actually have the legal case that this came into play. And so I'll get you that. I'll get you guys that information. But I'm familiar with this just because of a legal suit that happened through the trust about this type of.
Thank you. Yeah, it would be great if, just as it matches the statute as closely as possible, so we don't deviate from that.
Allison.
Yeah, so that was one of my main concerns here, and it says that we'll establish which technologies are approved for use by the employees to communicate with parents and students. So when I was reading that, I thought, well, one thing was like after-school activities, sports, STEM, all of that. Sometimes there's changes in location where the kids have to go, or it's a rain out and it's canceled, or things like that, and it's not necessarily they're going to be carrying around their laptop to let people know. So do we need to, like, when we settle this, do we need to be a little bit more clear? And then I was also worried, like, does this mean that those people who take on those such responsibilities, would we need to purchase cell phones and take care of their cell phone bill for them so that it's on us?
The district has cell phones that we could give to employees for that particular reason. I think it's more, I don't want to speak, but it's more along the lines is that the district has communication methods that for parents to be and teachers to communicate with students. So like Class Dojo, if that's a district approved communication tool, then yes, you're using that platform. It comes with the text messaging. I'm on Snapchat, all these ones that they need to be approved methods for communication. And that's where I would say for our regulations, we would come and say, these are the approved communication tools that we have for our employees to use to communicate with families, whether it's Snap, Class Dojo, or any others. And that's where it gets, that's where the clarity. And I'll get you the law. I know this case pretty, it was a very bad case with teacher grooming a student. But I'll get you the case and I'll get you the actual statute where it came into, because the statute and the change in the law, I believe, came after that case that they wanted to put regulations in. And it's really for the district to outline what is the appropriate communications that our employees should be using to communicate with students.
And if we have technology devices that we can offer to those who may feel uncomfortable based upon changes that are being made, can we get a message out to them about that?
Yeah, it will probably come, if there's a cost associated with it, we will come back to this board and say, because of this, we're going to implement this and there's a cost to it for us to do.
Mr. President.
Any others? All right, moving on to 9:15, discussion and first review of proposed changes to the governing board policy, GDC, support staff leaves and absences. Can't imagine there's any discussion points on this one. Yeah. So moving on to 9:16, discussion and first review of proposed changes to governing board policy, IHA, basic instructional program. Charlotte.
This is another one I'd like to have some help with making sure we're following statute. I'm very concerned with the removal of science, not necessarily experiences, but science, fine and practical arts. We know that fine and practical arts are highly prized within our district. And I do understand that they're trying to minimize the requirements, from how I understood it, that each school needs to provide. Is that accurate, Dr. Driscoll?
I can't confirm nor deny that.
Okay.
If it's accurate.
And technology skills. So this is the way I read it initially, and I, didn't read it along with statute. I just want to make sure that we mirror what's actually in law. Thank you.
Jim.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too was concerned about all the items that were being struck, and then they were added in. And I was pleased to see that on item D is science. And item E is 2 or more of the following: visual arts, dance, theater, music, or media arts. And I thought, that's great. And I think some kids are really excited about that. Some aren't. And from that standpoint, but I think Tempe Elementary has a history of trying to provide some of these visual arts and dance and theater and music, particularly music. And I'm just very pleased to see that in here. That's all, Mr. President.
Allison?
Yeah, I'd like to support my school board members here. It was a concern, so I wanted to know, is it something that we have to take out? Where this is originating from? I know sometimes we just have to do what we have to do. Is this something that we have to do?
I don't play a lawyer, but these are all advisory, and so they are advising you to do this based on statute or their interpretation of a statute. But ultimately, as the governing board, you have to approve whether you want to keep it or not. If you don't, then, I would have to talk to ASBA, but they would say, hey, you didn't follow our policy. So if you had a policy violation in that and and your policy was different than what they were recommending, but ASBA doesn't protect us, it's the trust. So we would talk to the trust to see if our interpretation would still be covered under our insurance if we were ever to get sued under these. So I can find that out.
Okay, and the reason why I bring this up is because I believe that our school board member responsibilities is to set precedent for the future of our district. Not necessarily now, because we all know that we support science. We know that we support the practical art experience. But it doesn't necessarily keep it into statute that we find that that's important, that our community elected us to make sure that we find that it's important. That's the reason why I am concerned about this. 15 years down the road, that could be like, well, we were just told we have to teach math and social studies. I know that sounds ridiculous, but in this day and time, I don't believe it is.
Yeah, and I'll get you that, whether it's actual law or if we have the ability to say, no, we want to do something different.
Monica?
Thank you, Mr. President. And just so that we understand correctly, these are existing policies we already have. The blues, the recommended changes
Correct.
per advisory. So even if we choose, we are unclear or want to delay, we already have the existing statutes already passed.
We already have the existing policies already passed, yes. All these are their suggestions, I would say, based on their legal interpretation of different statutes and stuff like that. But ultimately, the governing board, you have the ability to say yes or no, that you want to make these changes or not. And if you do that, it would be me or our legal counsel coming here and saying, based on that choice, understand these are the risks that we have if we ever potentially get sued and stuff like that for it. So, but ultimately, you as the governing board, you are correct. You can say, nope, I don't want to do that, and you do not have to do that. These are just advice that they're giving us. Now, if it's a law, then I would say it's the law. So we all sign it, we would follow the law, and we need to make that. But on some of these, they're just advice. There might not be actual laws, their interpretation of what they think the law says.
Yeah, it might be a good idea if we could have a bit of a little bit more audit of in depth to ensure that it is aligning with state statute as much as possible. Because I don't know, based on one of them I didn't see any, the statutes didn't appear to align with the policy.
Charlotte?
Yeah, and I just have a question for Ms. Mo. On the back side of this in blue, is speaking specifically about two different areas of social studies. And I just wanted a confirmation that that's already built into the standards for those grades, correct? Instruction on the Holocaust and other genocides, and instruction in the Constitution of the United States. I mean, I've taught social studies
Yes.
for 23 years, so.
Yes, this is all built in. Specifically, number 2, that happens in 8th grade, second semester,
Right.
and we use all the resources through ADE.
Post-Constitution Day that we do every
Correct.
year for every grade.
Yes.
And then I just find that interesting, we pull out just 2 specific units, so, okay, I just wanted to ask that question.
Could we scroll down to the back page so everybody knows what we're talking about? Because they were just renumbered in order.
Yeah.
Science D and then,
Right there, yeah.
the E.
And we'll have to fix the extra space on instructions.
And Mr. President, I took a look at the difference between the D that was added in later with the D with science that was struck, and it says science experiences. And that could be a lot of things, but science gives us more flexibility from that standpoint. It doesn't require an experience. So I was pleased with the change. Thank you.
Anything else on this one? All right, moving on to 917. Discussion first review of proposed changes to governing board policy IMA, teaching methods. All right, seeing none, moving on to 918. Discussion and first review of proposed changes to governing board policy JFABDA, admission of students in foster care. Charlotte.
Just a question on C and D of this one. This falls under McKinney-Vento, correct? So if I recall the law correctly, it is shall be immediately enrolled. So is this because of the bid process, the best interest determination process, that they give us 2 days now?
Go ahead.
That's quite all right. So actually, does not, the McKinney-Vento process and the enrolling of foster children are 2 different processes. We are actually working through this process right now to kind of clean up our office procedures and make it clear to folks. But until they have what's called a bid meeting, we cannot enroll the child. So Alexis Saspy, who is our parent outreach coordinator, coordinates and schedules those bid meetings immediately, and then dependent upon the outcome of the bid meeting, then we either enroll the child or the child goes back to their school of origin.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Moving on to 919, discussion and first review of proposed changes to governing board policy JH, student absences and excuses. Charlotte.
Just want to highlight an area of concern for me, the deployment-related absences, so military family children, right? That would not be considered a reason. So I just have a concern about striking that. I think military families need more protections.
Monica.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the event that for whatever reason was removed from state statute, that would be something that we actually could, as a district, leave in, correct, Dr. Driscoll?
Yeah, you can always have more.
Okay.
You can always add more people to it.
Particularly with excused absences, I think it's only fair for our deployment-related absences, makes sense.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is like in terms of when we report it to the state for excused and unexcused, but I don't even think they even get to that granular of a level.
They do not. We just report excused and unexcused. So we could also capture that under other family emergency. But I think as clear as we can be to our office staff about how to code absences, the better. So leaving it in might be helpful.
All right. Moving on to 920, discussion and first review of proposed changes to governing board policy JHD, exclusions and exemptions from school attendance. Seeing no questions, moving on to 921, discussion and first review of proposed changes to Governing Board Policy JIH, student interrogation searches and arrests. Seeing no questions, moving on to 922, discussion and first review of proposed changes to Governing Board Policy JJE, student fundraising activities. Seeing none, moving finally to 923, discussion and first review of proposed changes to Governing Board Policy KEC, public concern/complaints about instructional resources. All right, seeing none, we are through the nines. On to 1001, reports from standing committees. Yeah.
God, I was in that mode. Yes, so the Insurance Trust Committee, thanks, Mr. McKinney. We met on Friday, and I just want to give you a recap of what's happening. So it's, I don't think it would be a surprise to anybody that insurance rates and medical costs are increasing faster than anything else that we deal with in our daily lives. I can tell you that this district and the board that you have and the committee that you have working on this is extremely concerned in making sure that we offer the best possible plan at the lowest possible rate for all of our employees. And one thing that continually comes up right now where we're seeing the largest increase in costs is prescription drugs. And that is something that everyone can help us with. And I'm not asking for anybody in this district to take a drug that wouldn't work for them. What I'm asking is that everyone take a look and speak with your doctors when you go to say, is there a generic form of that drug? And the reason why I say that is we are self-insured, which is a very unique thing for this district. And what makes it so unique and fantastic is that we can decide what type of benefits we want to provide to our employees. And some of them are really awesome and outside the box thinking and making sure that there's less time that you have to be in a doctor's office and more time that you can be with your families, and also opening up to homeopathic care. Things that make you better, not make you worse, is a big focus. But in order to do those things, we have to have the control of it. And the higher this gets, the more costly it gets. If we can all participate together in keeping our costs down, it would be fantastic. And I can just give you an example. There's one drug that has been proven to be as good as the generic drug. The drug generic is $27 a month. The drug with a specialty drug is $6,089.02. And we pay that because we are self-insured. It's not being pushed off on those darn insurance companies. It's being pushed off on us. So everybody who's in this room and anybody who's listening on TV, if you guys can help be conversationalists in this and say, listen, our district really does want to continue to have free plans. We want to be competitive to our employees on the insurance costs that you guys have to incur. And with that said, if everyone can start as they get their renews asking about generic drugs, it would help everyone. And when you're talking to your family members in the businesses that they're in, this is a great thing for all of us to be doing, because the difference of $6,089 to $27 is so extreme that you can see that that's not benefiting us. It's benefiting someone else. So that's the main thing that we can all control, right? The cost of medical, the cost of these great new procedures that we want everyone to have availability to, and knee replacements and this and that, we can't control that cost, but I'm telling you, this is a multi-million-dollar cost that we can control. So if you can share that and think about it yourself. And the second thing that I'm asking everyone for is to make sure you get your annual exam. And there's an absolute reward in that for you. One, the reward of knowing that you are healthy, or if there's something that you aren't healthy with and you catch it quickly, that you can take care of it quickly and be healthier faster. Also, we know that the costs to take care of you with that would be a lot lower. And third, there's a bonus program to it because you will be entered into a drawing for $150. It's a taxable prize, but it's a real prize that we as the committee has decided we want to reward people who are making sure that they are watching their health and getting the help that they need when they need it as fast as they can. So with that said, those are my big asks. Then what do you ask of us? What have we done for you lately? And our committee has sat down and we are currently asking for a comprehensive review of every single thing that we're doing in this insurance arena. Like, how are we functioning? What sources are we using? And we started off this last week with getting some detailed information on that. And our next meeting is going to go into even more detail, literally auditing on almost everything that we can possibly do. And we haven't done that for almost a decade. So it's time, and we're getting nitty gritty with it. At times when I hear about the competitiveness of Tempe Elementary and how much cost the insurance is for you and your spouse and your families in consideration with other districts, I can sit up here and honestly tell you that we are as competitive, if not better, based on the policies that we give. A lot of them look lower in cost to each employee, but their deductibles are so much higher, so your out-of-pocket cost is so much higher. And we did a comprehensive review of every district, not just the tri-district, every district around us, so that we could make sure that you guys were getting the best that you could possibly get. And I can sit up here and say, I will stand behind that, and I know that. So look at generics. Did I tell you about that? Just kidding. And I told you about the audits, and I would just like to thank the committee. We have a robust, really good committee that we're working with, and it's with parents, and it's with community members, and it's with teachers, and it's with, and then it's with obviously our staff here. And all of us are so universal when we're talking, and the main thing that we talk about all the time is how do we make sure that we give you the best benefit that you can possibly get to be healthy and to enjoy working at Tempe Elementary. If these costs come out, then we just go to Eric and say, you got to help us figure it out. And then we have to tell him to go get his exams because we don't want him to have a heart attack. But we're always considering it. So if you ever hear anybody say, oh my gosh, they're just raising our insurance rates and they don't care about us and all of that, I can tell you single-handedly 15 people that I know that sit in a room every quarter on a Friday morning, early in the morning, and they'll tell you there's not even coffee and donuts. One of them has to go get his own coffee, and we know about that, but that's part of our joke. We do it because we want to, and we want to make sure that you guys are fully taken care of. So please talk to Sandra. If you have questions, where do I go? What is my benefit? What can I get taken care of? How can I win a major prize? Seriously, call Sandra. That's what she's there for. That's what we have her for, and utilize her because she knows the in and outs, and some of this is totally confusing depending upon what plan you're on and what you get. So please just take care of yourself, okay? And then allow us and help us do the best that we can for you. And lastly, put it on your calendar. We're gonna have a blood drive in December, and we're gonna make it as big as we possibly can because Sandra and I went to the Vitalent luncheon, and we saw some districts that beat us on how many people were giving blood, and we got a little grumpy about it. So with that said, please just remember to think about giving and giving in a way that doesn't cost any money but that will give a life, and get ready to watch for that December date to come out so that you can join us for the blood drive. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to 10:02, student activity report. I don't think we have any questions there. 11:01, board information. Jim.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was very pleased to attend yesterday's ceremony at Toyota. What is it? Toyota Financial. And it's the national kind of headquarters for that. And of course, it's real near all those data farms that are down on off of Price Road from that standpoint. And it takes me back to, I don't know, about 17 years ago when I was working with Intel on environmental health issues. And we spent a lot of time negotiating that and came up with a great result. And they worked with schools. There was a school board member from Chandler on that. And so I think it's a great thing, and I'm very pleased that everybody pitched in to make this happen, and that we're using probably, starting with 3 of our schools, is a good place to start, because I think those are the kids that need this exposure, and the teachers need help with this, and it's close to ASU, so I think we can tap into some other resources. So, Mr. President, thank you very much. You were there. I didn't get a sweet roll after the, Mr. President got a sweet roll first, and then I was greeting everybody. Dr. Uxted was sitting next to me, and Kathy Stevens was sitting on the other side, and I didn't think it'd be fair if I went up and got just one roll. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to brag. I had a delicious dinner provided by Tempe Elementary Nutritional Services. And I don't know that you mentioned it, Dr. Driscoll, about the CEP. Is that something we can mention? Yes. Pretty big news here in Tempe Elementary School. Thanks to the work effort of our staff, we were able to expand, apply for, I don't know, what is it called? You do, Dr. Driscoll, I don't know how to.
Yeah. So we were recently awarded where all our schools, with the exception of GETS and TOA, students will be able to eat breakfast and lunch for free. So that's really awesome for our community, and it's through the hard work of Janae, our Director of Food and Nutrition. So she did the work, and our students are benefiting from it, our students and families.
Thank you so much. I think I've talked about this before, but for many students, I was one of them, school lunch was the only meal you got for the day. And so this is really life-changing. No matter your income, the kids get a free meal. And I think that's a really huge thing. So thank you to everyone who made an effort and made that happen.
A really delicious meal. We're checking on the though.
I just want to correct the record. It was a muffin, not a sweet roll.
Mr. President, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry. It was a muffin, not a roll?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very important information. All right, moving on to moving on to 12:01, announcements of upcoming events. Parent-teacher conferences will be held from March 5th through March 7th, 2024. All schools will follow the early release schedule. Spring break is from March 11th through March 25th, 2024. All Tempe elementary schools will be closed. The next regularly scheduled governing board meeting is Wednesday, March 20th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the Karen Arredondo Governing Board room, which is this room. Spring holiday is Friday, March 29th, 2024. All Tempe elementary schools and district offices will be closed. TD3 Excellence Awards reception will be held Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. in the Karen Arredondo Governing Board room, which is this room. 13:01, meeting adjournment. Do I have a motion?
Adjournment so moved. I usually wait for Eric, but I forget we don't have to do that anymore.
Sorry to have removed that, taken that from you guys. All right, we have a motion by Allison, seconded by Charlotte. All those in favor say aye. 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 Motion carries. We are adjourned.